I think it's safe to say that with spring having come at last, it's lit the fire under me to continue recording this lovely, lovely series about Paranoia Syndrome and demons swinging chains around that are called Iago that are not related to the Gilbert Gottfried parrot from Aladdin, and many more. So let's continue on. Chapter 7 of Black Star. When they finally reunited in LeBlanc, the weather was drizzly. The light through Sojiro's front windows turned colorless, mournful. Sojiro greeted them one by one, but he seemed distracted. The cup of coffee by his shoulder had gone stone cold. In the corner of the cafe, the TV news yammered on and on. He couldn't seem to take his eyes off it. Once they were all assembled, Makoto asked Futaba hesitantly if Sojiro was paying her enough attention. Futaba said he was doing what he had to do, and then she said no more. They spread out in the loft. Ryuji had grabbed Akira's desk chair and pulled it up to the long table beside the stairs, leaving Haru and Yusuke to stand. No one called him out for this. He was the most visibly agitated of them all, restlessly scratching his cheek or drumming his knee like an addict in need of a fix. He continued his patrols of the city even after his unfortunate run-in with Yoshida Torinosuke, and what he'd seen had apparently not improved his mood any. Futaba was huddled in the corner of Akira's cot, with her parka's hood pulled out over her head, and her arms snaked out to her laptop. Its keys rattled over their conversation. "Okay," said Makoto. "Let's review." She pointed to each of them in turn as she spoke. Paranoia Syndrome is absolutely real, and much more widespread than any of us first thought. Oya suspects that the number of actual cases numbered in the hundreds, and there's no telling exactly how much that number has increased since then. Pointing to Haru. If the sickness is the result of human activity, there's no clear culprit. Mr. EY speculates that it disproportionately affected the criminal population, at least initially, and that significant geopolitical unrest is brewing as it spreads. To Ryuji. The government is, predictably, useless. Right now, they're just trying to lay blame on someone, and the public service announcement they made about Paranoia Syndrome probably made everyone even more anxious. To On. The symptoms are also much worse than we expected, with the unconsciousness being accompanied by severe and constant pain that might eventually prove fatal. There's no traditional cure in sight. To Yusuke. And that's because Paranoia Syndrome, as we thought, is most likely supernatural. I can't completely work out Mifune's prediction, but the way she described Akira doesn't make it sound like he's just lying in a hospital bed. Mifune also said that the entire world's future seems to be growing more uncertain by the day. I need to go back and check that tarot prophecy. She lowered her hand. Futaba, what about you? Reported cases of Paranoia Syndrome, verified or otherwise, have increased by 1,500% in the last week, give or take. She didn't stop typing. If there was a cover-up, then the cover-uppers have given up on it completely. Even if a lot of these are hoaxes, it's not good news. Also, I found something weird about how the cases themselves are reported. Weird in what way? Distribution. I tried to unearth as many suppressed reports or videos as I could, and it looks like they were posted in rough batches at specific points in time, especially early on. In other words, people aren't just falling into comas little by little. They're falling into comas in groups, except those groups are randomly spread out all over the world, and they're getting bigger and more frequent. It's completely unnatural. Futaba, have you seen anyone threatening to leak this info? On asked. Or any of the medical details, like what Dr. Takemi mentioned? Those idiot medjed trolls are making noise again, and I don't have time to destroy them all. Even with their utter incompetence at all things, I'd give it a few weeks tops before one of them or some other dumbass hacker decides to drop a truth bomb on everyone. That's all I know. Her fingers paused. Also, I broke down crying in front of my homeroom teacher. So, that was fun. It's not fun at all! None of them had anything to say to that. Rain pattered on the window as they fell silent. Then, they heard another sound. A steady, low thump. They all turned to Ryuji, who was bent low, fidgeting in his chair, tapping his foot with fists clenched. He looked ready to detonate. Ryuji? Haru asked. Are you okay? Trying not to flip out, he said. He wouldn't look up. Don't want to do it. Not in Akira's room. I'm counting backwards from 10 and it ain't working. Bottling it up helps no one, Ryuji, said Yusuke. If I don't bottle it up, I'm gonna put a hole through the effing floor. On leaned forward. Ryuji, we're all feeling the same way. Then he looked up and she stopped talking. His eyes were red, cheeks blotchy. He looked on the verge of tears. What the hell is wrong with us? He said, voice hoarse. Ain't we supposed to be these big shot saviors of society and all that? Meanwhile, this shit's been going on for months, and I've been worrying about entrance exams and beating my best time on the damn track. Now the whole world feels like it's gonna blow up any second, and we can't even do shit about it. Why'd we wait so long? None of them seemed to have answers ready. Even Yusuke, usually unflappable, could only stare at his feet. I know it's 'cause of Akira, Ryuji said. We started looking into this for his sake, but it shouldn't have been. We should have been on top of this. It's our fault it got this bad. Makoto said, we promised to entrust society's future to the adults. I know. But this ain't what we meant, and if we'd taken 5 goddamn minutes to pay attention, we would have figured it out right away. Adults can't deal with this cognitive science paranormal bullshit. It's gotta be us. This may be a harsh truth, but when you look closely at our activities as the Phantom Thieves, this is not dissimilar from how we've always behaved, Yusuke said. What the hell's that supposed to mean? Think about it. Even if you consider the influence of the fan site, each of our major targets were chosen primarily due to their proximity to one of our number. Kamoshida's torment of you and On, Mishima and Shiho included, Madarame and myself, Kaneshiro threatening Makoto, Haru and her father. Even Medjed and Sai Nijima became our opponents because we were threatened by their activities. Masayoshi Shido himself was ultimately defeated because he had slighted us, Akira in particular. He pinched his nose. This latest occurrence with Paranoia Syndrome follows that pattern. We did nothing about it because it affected no one that we knew personally. That's bullshit, man! Ryuji shouted. We're supposed to be... He does have a point, Haru said. My father was distorted, but I asked you to target him specifically for my own sake. Even if it ended... Well, we know how it ended. On, meanwhile, was nervously twirling her pigtail around one finger. Dr. Takemi mentioned something like this. She said people have trouble seeing the bigger picture. So what? Now we just suck? Is that what we're saying here? We put our lives on the line to save this city, and not even a year later, it turns out it didn't mean shit? No one is suggesting that, said Morgana. But we should absolutely devote all our energy to resolving this as soon as possible. Our reputation means little considering what's at stake. Mona is here! The question is how, Makoto said. Wait, he was already with them? I had no idea. I thought that he was gonna make his appearance in the meeting and he wasn't already a part of... Okay. Yeah, and it's a damn good one, said Ryuji. We can learn all we want about this shit, but unless we actually stop it, all it's gonna do is stress us out more. Then he looked up again, brow creased. The room fell silent as everyone mentally replayed the last minute of their conversation. Ryuji turned around and saw a pair of deep blue eyes about 2 inches from his face. Son of a... He recoiled, lost his balance, and fell back. His head hit the planks with a flat thud that made everyone in the room flinch. Downstairs, the TV fell silent. Oh, like I thought. He actually became a part of the meeting at that moment. He'd actually arrived then. I got confused. Everything okay up there? Sojiro called. Yeah, boss. Ryuji forced himself up, gingerly rubbing his skull. Just leaned a little too far back in my chair. That's a bad habit, you know. Well, now I do. Sorry. The TV's babble resumed. Morgana, Makoto said. How in the world did you... Morgana bristled. I took the bus, thank you very much. Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to make it all the way to Tokyo like this? I couldn't even get on the trains. People kept stepping on me. You could at least say you're glad to see me, or... He trailed off. Futaba had pushed away her laptop and lowered her hood. She stared at him wide-eyed, as if expecting him to flicker out like a mirage. Morgana hopped off the table, padded across the room, and clambered into her lap. She reached down and pinched his cheeks. He didn't complain. Aww. Once she released him, he turned and faced the group. I've been in the city for several days now, he told them. I would have gotten in touch, but I saw a couple of you conducting investigations of your own. I thought it would be prudent to wait until you had gathered all the information you thought was available. How's Akira? An asked. Behind her, Yusuke helped Ryuji off the floor and back into his seat. I left the night after he fell unconscious. His parents, they're not taking this well. I doubt they would have wanted me hanging around anyway. Yusuke turned away from Ryuji. Morgana, you and Akira are inseparable. Were you present when the illness struck? Did he appear nervous or report a feeling of being watched? I wasn't actually in the room with him, but I had no idea he was even sick until I tried to wake him up. He looked like he'd just fallen asleep at his desk. Then that is indeed unlike the other victims. The symptoms they typically exhibit just prior to falling unconscious resemble some type of panic attack or seizure. They don't quietly slip away. Either way, I've come across some information that should prove valuable to all of you. So listen up and listen good. They gathered round, while Morgana tried his best to look solemn and serious. He wasn't having much success. Futaba had begun to absently scratch him behind his ears. Kitty therapy. Futaba needs kitty therapy. Especially from her favorite kitty. I've been living stray again since I came back to Tokyo, he said. Checking out the city like Ryuji has. You see something I didn't? Ryuji asked. I ain't surprised, considering how you ninja around the place. Ninja, ninja, Morgana ninja, Mona ninja. I was more concerned with something beyond the naked eye. His pupils dilated the slits as if to illustrate. Like all of you, I suspected that Paranoia Syndrome might have some connection to the cognitive world. And down in the Tokyo Metro, where we first entered Mementos, I found what I was looking for. Not Mementos itself, but something like an echo of it. It's hard for me to describe it, but in that spot, somewhere far away, I could sense Akira. Are you saying Mementos is coming back? An asked. After all that work we did to banish it? I can't be certain of that. Either way, the signal I picked up is so faint that I still wouldn't be able to go there under normal circumstances. It'd be like trying to open a door made out of smoke. But with Akira's scent acting as a beacon, I think I can head inside wherever it is. If Akira, or his consciousness, or whatever is lost there, I recommend we go in and retrieve it. Freaking how? The Metanav disappeared with that bobble-headed mascot body of yours, remember? Morgana glared. Did you forget who you're talking to? I don't need some tacky phone app to go where I want. He's right, Ryuji, said Haru. Remember when I first entered my father's palace? It was because I tagged along too closely to Morgana when he crossed into the cognitive world. He dragged me in with him. And I can do the same for all of you, said Morgana. You've done an admirable job gathering intelligence so far. Now, it's time we prepare for a rescue operation. Just think of Akira as another treasure to steal, and everything should go smoothly. Ryuji grinned. Shit, now the cat's speaking my language. It wouldn't be wise to rush in, though, Makoto said. Oh, you're right. Haru fretfully bit her lip. All of my weapons are at home. It's such a bother carrying them around. Yeah, I get the feeling the cops would kind of raise an eyebrow at anyone toting a battle axe down the street. Still, I ain't in any mood to wait. Remember our rule, said An. Anything we do unanimously. Morgana nodded. Agreed. Let's take a... Futaba clamped her hands around his sides. Wait, what? Wordlessly, she stood up, pushed through the group, and made her way downstairs, Morgana squirming in her grip. Futaba, what the hell? Put me down! She didn't answer. It's pouring rain outside. I don't want to get wet. Can I at least eat something first? Futaba! Futaba! Everyone heard his protests fade as Futaba descended. They were replaced by Sojiro's voice. Futaba, where are you? Wait, is that Akira's cat? It seems we have been overruled, Yusuke concluded. By the time they got downstairs, Sojiro was leaning out the door and calling for Futaba down the street. He turned around. The questions he wanted to ask were clear to see on his face. He had so many he seemed to be having trouble deciding on which one to ask first. So sorry, boss, An said and bowed deep. I think we're going to rescue Akira now. We'll look after Futaba, don't worry, Makoto said. We've just got to get to her. She's going to enter the metro without us. Ryuji grabbed his umbrella. Also, we might be curing Paranoia Syndrome, sorta. Talk later. They left the cafe in a storm of apologies and comforting promises and left him standing dumbfounded beside the door. At last the door swung shut, the bell's cheery jingle like a rim shot to a joke he wasn't in on. Eventually he shuffled over to the TV and snapped it off. Then he started rummaging behind the counter. Where the hell are my cigarettes? And it looks like the rest of the Phantom Thieves are returning as well, along with Morgana. I understand what Futaba's going through, though. After all, Akira, or Ren, is the one who saved her life. Of course, she wouldn't wait for the group to make a unanimous vote first before grabbing Morgana, rushing down the stairs, and going to the Tokyo Metro. Till the next time, we'll continue this.